What is up, Bombad fam? Welcome to yet another Tuesday of Hyperfocus. It's good to see you. It's good to be with you. Guys, this is the season finale of the first season of Hyperfocus. We're ending it with a bang. We're ending it with a fantastic conversation. I can't wait to have this with Mr. Peter Townley, which I'm going to bring in a second. I'm going to bring him in, but first, I want to go ahead and just plug some of the things we got going on the network here. So welcome to the Bombadcast YouTube channel. Again, I am Jerry, the Canon Junkie. My other half, some might say better half. Maybe we're equal, separate, but equal. Not that one. That's not the right one to use. But listen, me and Scotty put on a lot of shows here. Tuesday nights, we have Hyperfocus here with me. I sit down with a guest. We talk about whatever we want to talk about. It can be Star Wars. It can be Ghostbusters. It can be... we got an interesting topic for you guys tonight, and so I'm excited for you guys to talk about that, to hear that. Wednesday nights, Bombad Gaming with my boy Scotty J-Ro. I believe it's No One Knows November. And last week, I think Scotty played Mort the Chicken. Every week, it's a new game that is very obscure that no one really knows what it is. And it's a good time. But hang out with Scotty on Wednesday nights. It's fantastic. Then on Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. And then you can do the math from there, because I'm just going to do my time zone for right now. We have the main show, the Bombadcast, where we talk about Star Wars. We talk about, actually this week we're giving our initial reactions to Ghostbusters Afterlife. We're going to, both Scotty and I, we're going to mask up, brave the theater, and see Ghostbusters Afterlife, and then immediately talk about it on this stream. So get ready for that. Get ready. It's going to be a good time. I'm so glad to see you all here. A bang. Yes, a bang. You know what? Let's go ahead and bring in our wonderful guest, the wonderful, the lovely, the talented Peter Townley. Peter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good, Jerry.
Hey, thank you for joining me, for one thing. I really appreciate you. You look very comfortable. And
I am. I have been doing a lot of manual labor this week, so I have opted to recline for this. You've
earned it.
I think it's a good decision.
Frankly, you've earned it, and that's I will say nothing more about it. So welcome.
Reclining. I got a stack of LaCroix, so there we go.
That's all you need. That's as the old saying goes, as long as I'm reclined and have a stack of LaCroix, I can face whatever the world can throw at me. It is what it is. So, yeah. Peter, a little thing dropped, and I'm not going to show it on here, but a little thing dropped before. We talked a little bit about it beforehand on the internet. It's the new Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. And I don't think you saw it, and I didn't see it, but I have a special message from someone who loves trailers. And so we're going to go ahead and hear from Scotty for just real quick. I know this is my show, but I'm going to play a clip of Scotty. So here we go.
Trailer. Bombadcast has a Rock City Nos to work. Tealer. Stay Bombad.
Shut up.
Stay beamed and candle till I just can't wait.
The last Bombad, it sounds like it says "stay beamed and canned."
I mean, finally, Scotty was right. There was a trailer.
There was, yes. And listen. And we talked also about how you came in and out of the epic 13-hour Twitter space that occurred.
Yeah, I'd never done a Twitter space thing before. I didn't know what it was, but I saw you were in one. And so I was I guess I'll say hi to Jerry. Because I was just doing farm work and stuff. And I kept checking in throughout the day, and you kept being there. So
I had nothing better to do that day, honestly. Cause look at most of us, I got off work and I was planning on I was gonna be on a show that night talking about the Star Wars stuff that dropped. And then we got a Kenobi thing. We got a Kenobi thing. I don't want to be like, I don't want to come here and be like, you know, we deserve so much more, because no, fuck us, we don't. But I mean, it was kind of funny, and that's why that thing ended up becoming, I think, so epic, is that we were all just like, there's nothing else to do. We all cleared our schedules for today. I'm going to stay here and talk to you guys as long as you're here. And so we had a lot of interesting conversation that day. And I think you had the best list it just got to this, the Star Wars lube names. You had the best list.
Yeah.
You had the only list of names.
I spent a while, repairing a piece of heavy equipment. And so my brain needed to occupy itself. So,
well, that's, you know what? The world thanks you for your service, honestly, because it was some of the funniest shit I'd heard in a long time, especially Supreme Leader Stroke.
Yes.
I mean, come on. That's a great one. That's a great one.
It was a pretty good one.
It was pretty great. But, well, you know what? We could keep talking about Star Wars lube names if you wanted to, or we could probably get into the topic of conversation that we have for tonight. And I have to ask you the question, because they will yell at me in the chat if I don't. The question I didn't mean to be that I didn't mean to be iconic, and it has become iconic for the people who watch the show, is Peter. What are you hyper focused on right now?
Well, Jerry, you can let's bring up the presentation.
We got a presentation. Listen, I've been promised that I'm going to be surprised tonight. So I don't know. No pressure.
Yeah, we've been talking about the subject for a while, and you happen to have studied the Bible quite a bit. That was something you studied in college, was like biblical studies, right? And that's good, because that's going to come in very handy, because we're going to talk about Glenn Danzig.
All right.
Look at this man. Do you remember the 90s, Jerry?
Vaguely. I was a child.
Vaguely.
But I like to think of myself as the quintessential 90s baby. So
okay, good. Well, so this man, Glenn Danzig, sort of his fame, he sort of rose to fame in the 90s. He'd been a musician for since the mid 70s. But he really came into his own again. And I think about Glenn Danzig literally every day. I don't know if the man has
fantastic taste in belt buckles.
I don't know if I'm hyper focused on Glenn, but I am I think I have at least a general focus on Glenn. So the way that I came to know who Glenn Danzig was that it was the year, I believe it was the year 1993. And I used to watch Headbangers Ball whenever I could. And also, MTV was what the art teacher let the weird kids who hung out in his classroom at lunch watch. And
what a cool
there was
teacher.
This video. And I'm not going to play the video itself, but I'm going to play two guys talking over the video.
Okay. Here we go. I was going to say, I love the advertisement for Beavis and Butthead.
Song is so good they had to do it twice.
This is still funny to me.
It's you said two guys.
Yeah.
I was not prepared.
I mean, I was in high school at this time. Beavis and Butthead was the perfect thing to watch.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, here's this, who is this amazing man, Like,
right.
He just, to those of us who weren't really into metal,
right.
He just seemed to kind of like come out of nowhere. The video for the live version of Mother got like really big in 1993. And the funny thing is that
oh wow,
It was, it was a song that was from like 1988, I think.
Yeah,
but it was because he had this live album, Thrall Demon Sweat Live, that he was promoting with this video that the song that he had recorded 6 years earlier got big. And so like when you look at the album cover, we can start putting things together about Danzig. Like
there's a few things that come to mind off the bat.
Yeah, he really likes this horror movie font that his name is in.
Yes,
he really likes this like Frank Frazetta style art. And
very Conan.
Yeah. Now this song appeared on the first Danzig album, which is from, I believe, 1988. It was produced by Rick Rubin, who is mostly a hip hop producer, but an amazing producer. If you listen to one Danzig album, for my money, this is the one. It's really, really excellent. It's just rock and roll. The 90s was kind of this magical time in pop music, when pop music, which is a thing that is normally very polished, got very rough and messy for a while. And you had you had the grunge bands, you had hip hop coming in a big way. And amidst all of that, you also got some weird metal acts like Danzig that popped up. So before Danzig was a solo act, he was in this band called the Misfits.
Right.
Look at these guys. They're dorks. They're
this is a bunch of nerds right here.
Nerds. This is they're nerds. It's not like these guys were professional musicians. These were just the guys from Glenn's town. These were just the guys that he knew in where he was from, which was Lodi, New Jersey. So from left to right, we have Jerry Chiaffa, Glenn Anzalone, and Paul Chiaffa. Their stage names while they were in the Misfits were Jerry Only, Glenn Danzig, and Doyle. Right. I don't know. I don't know why you give a fucking Italian guy a stupid Irish guy's name as a nickname, but there you fucking go, I guess.
I'm still trying to get over how the guy closest to us looks like my dad's high school picture without the mustache. Honestly, without the mustache.
But yeah, it's like when you think of like the classic lineup of the Misfits, it's mostly these three guys. Jerry. Glenn originally just had a guy he knew who he was a drummer who he was making music with, and they just happened to see that Jerry had a bass guitar in the back of his car, and they asked him to join the band. He'd only had the guitar for like a couple of months.
That's how I ended up in a band in college. Honestly.
His younger brother Paul, probably learned to play the guitar because Jerry was in a band, and he was still in high school when he joined the Misfits. And so these guys in their day were not very well liked in the punk scene, really, because they had this weird like horror movie gimmick. They had costumes, they had their own little haircut that we see Jerry on the right here has, where it's all combed down in the front. They were kind of a gimmicky band, and that didn't always do so well in the punk scene.
Which is so crazy because it's like the punk scene should be the most like individualistic. Like it's like you do your thing, man. Like that's the whole point, I thought.
But it's still a scene, and scenes are dominated by the people who know what's going on. There's gatekeepers in every fandom, so. And so they weren't cool guys, this skull is one of the most recognizable icons in rock and roll. You just see
100%.
You just see it.
I know what it is
everywhere.
I know what it is. I barely listen to the Misfits, right?
Yeah,
like I know what it is. Yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly. You'll see
100%.
teenagers everywhere wearing this shirt. And
all
the
the time.
The Misfits largely started to get famous after they broke up. The Misfits were together from 1977 to 1983. And they broke up largely because Glenn kept arguing with Jerry. They didn't get along very well. Glenn also thought that the guys in his band weren't very good at their instruments.
Right.
The thing that sucks about that, though, is that one of the reasons Glenn was a good musician is that he did that all the time. The band was funded and supported by Jerry and Paul, working in their dad's metal shop and like paying to keep things going, you know. But
yeah,
like it ends really badly. Like Glenn breaks up the band. And you know, he starts his next band. But they make like 3 albums. If you're going to listen to one Misfits album, this for my money is the one. Walk Among Us is really, really good. You're also going to notice on this album is how short Glenn is. Glenn is 5'3", 5'4". Yeah, I know. He's small.
Oh man.
Yeah.
He's smaller than me.
5'3", 5'4". He's so cute.
He can fit in my pocket, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
I love this cover.
He's small.
By the way.
Yeah.
I love the
really
UFOs.
Good.
It's right up my alley. I don't know why I'm not listening to this right now.
Their record label, which Glenn started, was called Plan 9. You know, they're nerds. You know, Glenn, like all their songs are about horror movies. The name of the band itself is the name of Marilyn Monroe's last movie.
Right.
You know, that's just who these guys are. They're nerds. Glenn, you can see the skull and crossbones pattern on his shirt. That is the exact skull and crossbones from an anime called Space Pirate Captain Harlock. He must have made
I recognize that.
He must have made this shirt himself, because there's no way you could have had merch for that in like 1980.
Or at least I feel like I've seen an anime character wearing that. I'm not familiar with the anime and stuff, but that now that you mentioned that, it does look very familiar. Wow. Okay.
But yeah, you know, I mean, Glenn, he loves comics, he loves schlocky horror movies, he loves music. So, and
my kind of
the
guy.
Misfits, it's a very bad breakup. There's a lot of bad blood.
Oh man.
Glenn goes on to start his next band, which we in the United States would call Sam Hain.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
He would go on to become Danzig as a solo act. Very prolific artist and producer. Lots and lots of music.
Right.
But like Danzig as a person,
nice hair too.
Oh, beautiful! After he grew his hair out, beautiful.
Yeah.
But like Danzig as a person,
luscious
like,
locks.
Yeah, he's this rock and roll icon. He really looks the part. But like when you see him interviewed, he seems he's kind of soft-spoken. He doesn't like being interviewed. He doesn't seem like a rock frontman in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Originally, when I did this deal with Rick Rubin, the idea was that I wanted to put together a great band, and so that's what I did. Yeah, we had guitar auditions, and that took about 6 months. John Christ is the guy who won the auditions. He's an incredible guitar player, great stage presence, and Chuck Biscuits.
Chuck Biscuits was from the Circle Jerks, like Eerie Vaughn, who was their bass player. It was kind of like Danzig's band was
great
kind of
name.
like a super group. Yeah. But Glenn,
he is very
he seems a little shy and like a little quiet. Again, he seems like kind of a nerd. He doesn't seem like the sort of like in your face rock and roll dude that like he looks like on the album covers. And here's where your Bible knowledge is really going to start to come into play here, Jerry.
All right. Hell yeah, man.
Please. Well, basically, in the original Bible, before even the Jewish Bible, Satan fathered Cain to permit Cain to perform the first murder in recorded history.
Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is you're passing on history.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so we take a look at the video right now.
He was being asked what his songs were about, and that was his answer.
It's about the original Bible. Before the Bible we have now, but before Bible Part 2, it's
yeah, it's a little. Glenn seems a little dumb sometimes. It seems like maybe he's not a super smart kind of a nerd.
Yeah.
Glenn, though, I find very lovable. One of the reasons is he's a cat person. I will cut someone a lot of slack if they're a cat person. Hey. But yeah, Glenn, he doesn't like being interviewed, doesn't like to talk about himself. He just wants to talk about movies or music or comic books, mostly music. He's kind of a genius at music, and he seems like a moron at everything else.
Well,
but unfortunately,
this, by the way, the softest picture, like these are the softest pictures I've ever seen.
I love it.
Look at
Just
look at him, like, look at him snuggling that cat.
That's
so
the most
adorable thing I've ever seen.
He had like a bunch of adopted cats in his house. He had like at least 5 cats, I think. In an interview that I read.
Crazy cat lady. This is awesome.
Yeah, I think he might be kind of a crazy cat lady as well.
You're starting to, and this has happened a lot on Hyperfocus. I think I'm starting to become obsessed with Glenn Danzig as well.
Yeah, well,
honestly,
the thing is that unfortunately Danzig also takes himself a little seriously.
Okay.
And
that could either be annoying or funny.
But I mean, you know how the internet can be about people who take themselves seriously, who are famous people, who are also clearly kind of ridiculous, as Glenn is. Well, one day Glenn was like at a Petco buying stuff for his cats, and someone got pictures of him. And seeing Danzig do like regular person stuff is amazing. And like lots of memes were based on this, of him buying kitty litter and loading up his Jaguar. And people in interviews would ask him about it, and he would just refuse to talk about it.
Really?
He thought it was lame. He also didn't think that Beavis and Butthead video was very funny. He doesn't. I think Glenn might be.
He doesn't get it. Maybe.
I think he might be. I think he doesn't like being made fun of. I think it might hurt. It might hurt his feelings.
I mean,
but the
honestly,
thing is that like, yeah.
Okay, well, just because this looks like Edward Scissorhands goes to the Petco is what this looks like right here.
Exactly. Like, this was not that long.
Which I mean with love. So
he's probably in it. He's probably in his 50s here, and he still has the hair. He's wearing the shirt of his own band. It's like seeing a cryptid. Seeing Glenn Danzig do regular person stuff.
Look. There's Glenn Danzig, and he's got cat litter. Look at him.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's incredible. It's so incredible, right? But he's not amused. He doesn't think it's funny. And also, Danzig doesn't know how to use the internet. I
wasn't prepared for this.
Danzig was born in 1955. He's literally a baby boomer. He's a boomer. He doesn't know how the internet works. He doesn't know how to use Facebook necessarily. When you say things like this, people are going to make fun of you. So,
oh my God.
Danzig's Facebook account inevitably gets hacked at some point. He really doesn't think this is funny. I think he takes down his Facebook page shortly after this. I don't
smoke weed. I don't eat hot dogs. I definitely don't eat oh my God. And I will. This is like it's like a Liam Neeson moment there when I find this piece of shit.
Yeah, but I mean also to then post a picture of himself under this looking mean.
So condescending.
He's making it funnier and he doesn't realize. So as this always goes, I mean, Danzig's being bullied online is what's happening here.
Right.
He doesn't understand. He's a boomer. He doesn't understand why people are doing this to him. And eventually, like all bullying, this is going to come into the real world at some point. This was Danzig's house in Los Angeles. This was not far from where I lived in Los Angeles in the early part of the 21st century. His house was off of Franklin Avenue, and it's this kind of dilapidated, very poorly kept craftsman house. It's like, it's not in great shape. It will look worse than this in other pictures.
Well, I was going to say, it looks like a haunted house, which should be right up his alley. I don't know if it looked like that when he lived there, but
completely overgrown, has his current Jaguar and his previous Jaguar in the driveway. Lawn's never been mowed. Ivy's growing all over the house. And then there's this pile of bricks that's right here. Like just sitting there.
That's for the shithead who hacked his Facebook.
It's hard to
build
say,
him into
but
a brick oven pizza.
What could these be? I mean, what could, like, look how just, I mean, he's just got this pile of bricks that don't even look like good bricks on his dead lawn. So
oh my God.
Danzig doesn't get along well with his neighbors, and apparently eventually to the internet there's this text conversation between a guy and his friend who lives down the street from Danzig, and he has a story about the bricks.
Oh my Lord.
So yeah, I'll just read. So he has this huge pile of bricks in his front yard, and the house looks like an evil.
Do you want to?
Okay, you be
you want to do parts?
I'll be Justin. You be me. Okay. So Danzig lives in this shithole near me in Los Feliz, about 100 yards down the street. His house is super run down, except he has a fucking amazing Jaguar in the backyard. Anyway,
it's a place of evil.
So he just has this huge pile of bricks in his front yard, and the house looks like an evil Pixar house. So anyway, his neighbor was like, dude, Danzig, please, you're bringing down property values with these bricks in your yard. And Danzig was pissed. So anyway, back and forth with this neighbor and Danzig. And finally, one day I see Danzig outside in his front yard, and he's hurling bricks into this dumpster, and he's screaming, "Here I am, motherfucker, just cleaning up my motherfucking bricks, bitch." Just super loud to no one in particular for 2 hours. It was amazing. Like, I couldn't even think about other things because it was so amazing.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
Dude, it blew my mind because it was Danzig as just a really poor homeowner.
Here I am, motherfucker, just cleaning up my motherfucking bricks, bitch.
There was someone made an art installation at a gallery in LA that was just this printed out with a wheelbarrow full of bricks. And so eventually Danzig gets tired of people probably taking pictures in front of his house all the time or annoying him.
Right, leave my fucking bricks alone. Everyone
knew where Danzig lived. Like, I drove by his house a few times just because you just find out where Danzig lives. Just like everyone's like, dude, can you believe?
You're not going to knock
that house. Of course you want to tell everyone it's Danzig's house. So eventually Danzig puts his house up for sale. And when the internet finds this out, people start going to his house to view it in order to see what it looks like on the inside, especially since he says he's selling the house as is.
Right.
And so we get eventually pictures and video of what Danzig's house looks like on the inside. And it looks like, here's the exterior, which is crumbling. But the interior, it looks like a teenager lives there.
It looks like a crack house.
He has a black carpet that it looks like he's never vacuumed. There's a mattress on the floor. And this is like the mid-20 teens, I think, and he's got an original PlayStation hooked up to the television set that's on the floor.
Good for him.
Just fucking piles of like action figures and
a little happy birthday card there.
Yeah, and like actual Frankenberry and Count Chocula in the kitchen next to the teddy bear.
with holding that was a Christmas teddy bear too.
Yeah, it was a Christmas teddy bear with the Frankenberry and Count Chocula.
Oh my God.
Fucking Looney Tunes and Disney memorabilia everywhere. I believe these are Land Before Time dinosaurs here.
Oh my Lord.
What
is this man? What is this man?
How? And then most importantly, there is this bookshelf.
Yes.
Glenn Danzig's bookshelf is a very important thing because one of the best things that was ever on television was this interview with Glenn Danzig and his bookshelf, which is mostly LPs, but we'll pass by that.
Right.
And this is him talking about his books.
Welcome to my book collection. This is just part of my book collection.
He's smiling. He's having a good time.
The World by Montague Summers. This is great. There's lots of great werewolf stories in here, all documented, all true. And there's one in particular that's great where they're looking for this guy who's accused of being a werewolf, and he comes out of this clearing shaking a baby in his mouth. That's pretty cool.
What?
It's the kind of stuff I like to read. Let's see.
What kind of book is that?
Yeah. Cult Roots and Nazism. Every school child should have this book.
He's just joking around, having a good time, saying things that he thinks will upset people.
Books on death, anthropology of evil, society's views of evil, what their conception of evil is. Something that don't even have evil. Here we go.
Here we go.
These are the lost books of the Bible. I've also forgotten to the
Oh, that's where he found out about the Satan stuff.
A lot of stuff that they omitted from the Bible. All original chapters of the Bible, which were excised.
The original
chapter in here. Here we go. Infancy. He told you about Jesus' childhood. Stuff that I guess most churches wouldn't want you to know about because it doesn't fit in with their ideology of Christ. Let me see. There's one passage in here where Jesus and a little kid are playing on the Sabbath, and Jesus is making these clay statues he's formed come to life. And the child says, it's a Sabbath, you shouldn't be doing that, and blah, 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 blah. And so anyway, Jesus kills the kid. And here we have another passage. Another time, the Lord Jesus was coming home in the evening with Joseph. He met a boy who ran so hard against him that he threw him down. To whom the Lord Jesus said, as thou hast thrown me down, so shalt thou fall, nor ever rise. And at that moment, the boy fell down and died.
That smile. This is the man who can't take himself seriously, or can't takes himself too seriously.
The angels, their names, the days they preside over, the hours, what their functions are. You believe in any of that stuff?
So, what is Danzig talking about? Yeah, what exactly? Yeah. He's shirtless. He's shirtless because he's Danzig. Boop. He is talking about the Book of Enoch, actually. Boop. What is what Danzig is on about? Danzig is talking about the occult. He is talking about what we call the occult, this kind of mishmash of different ideas about religion and the world and its makeup. The word, the occult as we kind of think of it now, and the stuff that Danzig's talking about, really that comes into shape in like the late 19th century. The word occult starts first being used in the English language to mean this kind of stuff, like in the 16th century, I think. But but from that era of the 16th century, you know, it does go back further because the stuff that they're studying does date back actually to the early days of Christianity. Occultism is very much at its roots tied to Christianity. Those, perhaps those missing books of the Bible that Danzig is talking about.
Right.
And it's, we tend to think about Christianity as being kind of a monolith sometimes, especially in the United States, because it very much seems to be one. But you and I were actually talking about, earlier in the stream, Jerry, about how before the medieval period, in the early centuries, the cement was still very wet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, there's a lot of, the Bible doesn't have a lot of answers for many of mankind's questions about how does the world work? How do these things that are in the Bible work exactly? Like there's a lot of things that are vague,
Yeah, it's more the idea than like a step by step, like here's exactly the inner workings of everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And really the philosophy of the time, in those early centuries was still very much based in the Greeks. And you had early Greek Christians, as these things were coming together, who were kind of trying to take stuff from like Plato, for example, and bring it into this emerging Christian worldview. And this thing that we now call Neoplatonism starts to develop. There's this guy who was a part of this tradition, Plotinus, and I like this quote from him, that God is not external to anyone, but is present with all things, though they are ignorant that he is so. That last part becomes a very key idea, that there are things that people are not aware of in terms of how the world works. And these Neoplatonic thinkers became very influential in early Christianity, in a tempered way, because some of their ideas could be considered heretical by some people in the church. But for example, Saint Augustine was someone who was influenced by the Neoplatonic thinkers. Saint Augustine was really fond of the passage in Corinthians that says that in life we cannot directly experience God. We do not see him. We can only see him through a glass darkly. He comes back to that phrase over and over again. It ended up being a favorite phrase of Philip K. Dick's because of that.
Right.
And like, even in someone as orthodox as St. Augustine, this idea that the Bible can be interpreted to try and understand the world in a way that is not obvious, emerges. And sometimes it can get very elaborate, trying to discover the order behind things, because surely there must be one. Surely there's evidence of that in the world we see. I like this one too. The stars are like letters that inscribe themselves at every moment in the sky. Everything in the world is full of signs. All events are coordinated. All things depend on each other. Everything breathes together. This idea of oneness is big in Neoplatonism, and the idea, and they kind of put it together with the idea, that God is all knowing, that God has a plan, that things are happening according to his plan, and that gives us a way to understand what's going on in the world. There were similar ideas, but very different in some ways, coming from, they're attributed to this legendary figure who's writing around the same time in the early centuries, Hermes Trismegistus, and things that are sort of related to his mystical way of looking at things is referred to as Hermeticism. And Hermeticism and Neoplatonism are kind of the things that go on to be the foundations of the occult. Hermes Trismegistus's works are about, the nature of reality and of God. They're about alchemy and medicine and chemistry, and very importantly, astrology. which is very much a science of the science of its time. There's a common misconception about astrology that it's like, oh, the stars and the planets influence us here on Earth. And no, that's not quite it. The stars and the planets, are moving predictably, right? And they are moving as all other things on Earth, in accordance to the will of God. And all things are connected, all things are whole, as Plotinus is saying. So if we can understand the meaning behind the pattern of the stars, which we can predict, we can understand what's going on here and even predict future events. Astrology is really, really big in not only antiquity, but continuing on into the medieval period. This is Paracelsus, who really revolutionized medicine in, I want to say, like the 1400s. He
could probably be played by Paul Giamatti just by that picture. I'm just saying.
My God, you're right. And the medicine that he practiced, it was based in, as he says, philosophy, astronomy, alchemy, and ethics. Alchemy, as it is described also by Hermes Trismegistus, it's not just the transmutation of metals, which is the thing we commonly think of alchemy as being, but the transmutation of metals led to gold in particular. Gold is the most divine thing. It's like the perfect metal. It doesn't tarnish, it has this brilliant color. It's of high value. And lead is the most base of all metals. The transmutation of the base into the sublime, is like an allegory for the spiritual practice of alchemy as a person. And also alchemy was this early form of chemistry. And this is where, practical elements of the occult, are emerging with guys like Paracelsus, because philosophy, like the Greeks were doing, was largely thinking about stuff. Or guys like Pythagoras, who are looking for the perfection of being through the mechanical relationships between things, and geometry and music and that sort of thing. And whereas someone like Paracelsus is experimenting, he's trying things, he's taking notes, he's seeing what works. This is something that's different. You have Cornelius Agrippa. Who's someone who figures largely, and there's a lot of writings that are attributed to him in Hermeticism as well. And this practice of astrology and alchemy as medicine continues for hundreds of years. And this is what doctors do. This is kind of a doctor's job. This is Dr. Simon Forman. He was a doctor in Elizabethan England, and we know things about what he did because his casebook was discovered. And a lot of his treatment involved casting the horoscopes of his patients. Gosh, no, I'm trying to remember whether this was Agrippa or Paracelsus, but with those guys, there's this idea of the macrocosm and the microcosm that emerges. That we are the microcosm, that God is the macrocosm, and that people become unhealthy when these two things are out of line. And so astrology is a useful tool in figuring out what the problem is and what needs to be done. And astrology for Forman's clients was also a useful tool if they just needed some advice, like how a business transaction was going to go, that sort of thing. One of Forman's clients was Amelia Lanier, who was a musician in Queen Elizabeth's court. It's thought that Shakespeare's Dark Lady sonnets were written about her, which is the reason that I came across Simon Forman, because I was reading a book about her. And in the Elizabethan period is when a lot of these ideas from antiquity, as particularly Neoplatonism, which kind of goes out of fashion for a while, really start to come back, and people start to really get interested in alchemy and astronomy. Queen Elizabeth herself had an astrologer. His name was John Dee. And this one of his pieces of work of which he was most proud is this Sigil of Truth here that's on the right. And so he did astrological readings for the Queen, and he was also kind of a brilliant mathematician and a cryptographer. And so he was involved in espionage and sending messages and that type of thing. And there was this other guy who worked with John Dee. His name was Edward Kelly. And they discovered the secret language of angels, which John Dee called Enochian. He
good for them. Enochian. Yeah, I've heard of that.
He somehow obtained these magical tablets that he couldn't show anyone else, I believe. And the way that they were transcribed is like he put his head in a bag with the tablets, and the angel revealed the meaning of the words to him, and he said them aloud, and Kelly wrote them down. And so this is where we get the Enochian alphabet. Again, I will note John Dee is a cryptographer. Inventing a new language is not something that would have been beyond him. But they have all of these hidden.
But he had an angel in a bag, though.
Yeah,
that's what he had, Peter. He had an angel in a bag, man. Come on.
Of course. I'm not going to question it.
No.
Also, the Book of Mormon, interestingly, is written in a very similar way to this.
I was gonna say, it sounds like that. I found these tablets on Go.
Yeah,
in a cave, man.
Tablets. No one else gets to look at them but me. Only I can read them if I do the special ritual.
If you look at them, they'll turn to dust.
Yeah,
it's just to you, it looks like just cow pies. That my cows, but no, it's gold. It's gold tablets. It's gold tablets. Don't worry about it.
And also, Kelly and Dee get instructions from the angels, which includes that they should sleep with each other's wives.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah,
sorry, I like this, the Joseph Smith switcheroo.
it's interesting that they told you guys to do that, John and Edward.
Yeah, so strange, man.
Yeah,
it's like any guy who discovers a new language or something new. I've got secret knowledge. You know what else they told me?
I can have more.
We should switch wives. We should switch wives. Let's switch it up. Just switch it up, man. Come on.
So,
what do you got to lose?
And so, there's
sounds like Hubbard. I'll run Hubbard.
And so, like, there's not only guys like Dee who are writing their own material. There's also a lot of look into like Jewish mysticism, like the Kabbalah at this time. And that starts getting brought in to these occultists who are trying to understand the mysteries of the world. Interestingly, one of the reasons that it's called mysticism is it comes from, I believe, the Greek word is just like mystikos. It just means hidden. It's the same meaning as the word occult. This is from a grimoire that was written in the 17th century, more or less contemporaneous to Kelly and Dee. And then a lot of other sorts of grimoires start being written, translated, and appearing. Because, the other thing that we've got in this time is we have the printing press exists now, and literacy rates are higher. And there is an interest in the public in this occult stuff. And so books start getting printed and sold. Like, let's see, the Key of Solomon, which is about how Solomon, the king from the Bible, let's see, what if I remember the Bible, Solomon,
let's see if you can remember,
like harnessed 72 demons and like sealed them away in containers. That happens in the Bible, right?
The thing I always remember about Solomon is the whole story about like the women who are fighting over the baby. He's like, all right, we'll cut the baby in half. And the one who it wasn't the baby was like, oh yeah, sure, fine, cut it in half. And the real mom was like, don't cut my baby in half. That's all I think like that is a straight quote.
Yeah.
From Song of Solomon right there. No, Song of Solomon is like sex. It's all about sex. Anyway, continue. Please continue.
Yeah. So, much like Danzig's bookshelf, many of these books claim to date back to antiquity. This book claims to be the work of King Solomon from the Bible. The people who have analyzed the text of the book are like, no, it's just not. It just couldn't possibly be. People determined it relatively early on that it's a kind of a forgery. It's a very interesting one. And not only does it have, stuff about the occult stuff about the inner workings of the universe, but it has like how to summon a demon and bind him and ask him to do things for you. How to ask the advice of the angels and, what planets they are in charge of, et cetera, et cetera.
Step one, get back.
There's emerging in this sort of era of grimoires, these books, some material interests that aren't entirely spiritual. You have the Grimoire of Pope Honorius, another grimoire that's attributed to someone who did not write it. That involves that involves sigils that are used in summoning and that kind of thing. There's this is the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage, which is well known for having these word squares in it that are used to create incantations. There's also curious cases like the Heptameron and the Voynich manuscript, which appear to be works that are basically just simply cryptography. They're not really occult works. They are occult in the sense that their meaning is hidden, and it has that kind of cryptographic element of the occult that someone like Dee was doing. And also the occult is so wrapped up in weird allegories. It can be hard to know what you're supposed to take literally and what you're supposed to not. But like eventually these grimoires start being less about the wisdom of Hermes Trismegistus and here's also the part with the demons in it, to where they're just about the demons eventually. Like, here's how to summon a demon and ask him to show you where buried treasure is. That's what most of this is.
Helpful.
A lot of times, it says when it has the name of the demon and what his symbol is and what he looks like, what the demon does is either makes it so that you are persuasive when talking to other people. Women will take their clothes off for you, or you will find some treasure. That's typically the thing. So like the Grand Grimoire, the Red Dragon, and the Black Pullet, that essentially the Black Chicken, which I believe the Black Pullet contains a ritual, and there's some guys that got jailed for like involving someone in a scheme to do this. But in the Black Pullet, it says you have to get a black chicken, summon a demon, and command the demon to make the chicken lay gold and silver eggs. A much more elaborate get rich quick scheme, but a get rich quick scheme nonetheless. There is a lot of just scamming that starts going on, but also, this is an era in which the Inquisition is getting active. And one of the things that people are forced to say in testimony is that they were going to signing the devil's book was a thing. Like, you sign your name in the devil's book and your soul belongs to the devil. So this idea of books with summoning demons in them is very, very intriguing to people. And it makes these books actually more popular. And there's a lot of...
And that's how they end up on Danzig's bookshelf.
That's how they get into Danzig's bookshelf. Like the Grand Grimoire here, like, it contains the Key of Solomon. It has parts of Agrippa's stuff in it. There's a lot of there's a lot of reprints. There's a lot of stuff that's just made up. There's a lot of things that draw from various sources. There's this is the 6th and 7th books of Moses, I believe. There's another one of your secret books of the Bible, possibly.
He's got so many, they just slip through the cracks.
They just keep finding more.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this also Germany.
50 Shades of Moses was a little too much for me, though. I mean, I couldn't handle that one. Sorry. That was, too many, buddy. Too many.
There's even in Germany, where the occult gets popular too, there's books that claim to be the magical handbook of Dr. Faustus, who is a fictional character.
I was going to say, you got to be careful. We're so close to QAnon territory there with Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, it's like someone claiming that they had a copy of the Necronomicon. It's like, it's not real. But this still worked on people, because people have always been dumb. We always have thought the people in the TV are our friends, even when it was books. So good. I think my bookshelf in some ways is similar to Danzig as well, Boop. So also, yeah, I bet the Toots and the Maytals did. Because also these grimoires did find their way to the New World, and there are a lot of the West Indies, and also in African American communities, there will be versions of these grimoires, you know, that have also been copied and reauthored, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of magic shops and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I unfortunately don't know as much about that particular subject, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it. But these books really did kind of spread like wildfire, you know, for a long time. It was a very exciting subject to people, and you know, and still is. There's kind of different forms of it now,
right?
Yeah, and you know, and as we've seen, like the actual like Christian elements of these books are starting to like fall away a little bit. And also there start to form these kind of like lodges and secret societies and that kind of thing in like the 17th century and onward. This symbology is from the Rosicrucians, or the Brotherhood of the Rosy Cross. And some people start to get like, some people who are like from more working class backgrounds start getting kind of initiated into Hermeticism and the occult in this way. You know, there's also famously the Freemasons, who are a secret society that somehow grew out of a tradesman's guild. I don't know that much about the Masons. I have no idea how that happened.
You know who I think does? You know who I think does is I don't know if you know our buddy on Twitter, Jackson the Leppy.
Oh, really?
Everything, Jackson. I'm thinking. I'm just. There's like a running thing where everyone's trying to figure out what he does for a job, because he's posted pictures that look like he works in Congress, and where he's keeping him mum about it. It's a bit.
So clearly he's a Freemason. Yeah.
He must be a Freemason. He must be a Freemason. He's called off Freemason snipers on me a few times. So
yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah, and
that looks like him right there, honestly.
Yeah, we have these kind of societies forming, and we're also getting into like, you know, the 18th and 19th centuries here. The time when feudalism is getting replaced by capitalism, the time when empire, you know, when monarchies and autocracies are getting replaced by democracies, and the world it's secularizing. And the way that people are thinking about this like occult and hermetic stuff starts to change. There's people like Blavatsky,
Madame Blavatsky.
Why am I blanking all of a sudden?
Madame
Helena
Blavatsky.
She found Helena Blavatsky. She found theosophy, which is something that's not kind of a variation of the occult that sort of like comes around again with a lot of new age ideas in the 60s and 70s. One of its beliefs is that, you know, that there is a mystery that underlies, you know, many of the religions of the world, and that there is a oneness to spiritual practices. She spent a lot of time, you know, traveling in like India and Tibet, you know. So again, the occult is getting de-Christianized, and it's starting to bring in these other traditions as well.
Right.
Also, Egypt starts getting mined in a big way, because the British, they love to steal things from Egypt. They can't get enough of it.
They love going in those tombs. They love it.
And when they first come across hieroglyphics, they assume it's got to be magical. And the Rosetta Stone like kind of ruins everyone's fun when that's discovered to a certain degree. But like the bug that Egypt is magic is very much there, and it never goes away. And plus, they had all these weird, interesting gods and rituals, and you know, it really sparked the imagination of people who were into the occult. There was this guy, S.L. McGregor Mathers. Well, Samuel L. Mathers. He added the McGregor part. He was just a working class dude who ended up getting into Hermeticism through, I believe the Freemasons. And he added the McGregor later when he got some kind of high ideas about himself. And he said that one of his ancestors was Scottish nobility, and
I think that was like a trend for a little bit at that time, where like
a
lot of people wanted, like, they changed their name to McGregor and stuff. I heard about that.
And so
trends are weird, man.
But he translates a lot of stuff. Relates, you know, stuff about the tarot. He does a translation of the Key of Solomon, and translation of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin and the Mage. There's also Arthur Edmund Waite, or White. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Another working class Londoner. He's most well known for the tarot deck that everyone probably comes to mind when they think of the tarot. They're probably coming across these images. This was the tarot deck that he helped develop with this guy, Rider. It's called the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. The artist, I believe her name was Pamela Coleman, maybe. She's, for whatever reason, not named in the name of the deck, which is kind of shitty. He got into Hermeticism through the Rosicrucians.
They didn't do that for women back then.
He got into Hermeticism through the Rosicrucians, which was very much based in the Christian mysticism type of thing, the hidden order of the world that shall be revealed, type of deal. And so McGregor Mathers and a couple other guys, they start their own secret society eventually called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And
here we go.
This is what's really going to shape the way that we think about the occult now. This group has a very large influence on it. They had a pretty decently sized membership that included, some renowned like artists in British society, and people who were, from a higher level society. Hey, what's up, Pete? Then people who were from a higher level society than guys like Waite and Mathers were. One of those guys was, here's Mathers and his wife. The Golden Dawn, they fucking loved robes, and they loved the rituals and
nerds.
They're nerds.
They're all nerds.
Exactly. They're nerds.
This is just cosplay before they were like characters to cosplay.
Yeah,
honestly.
they want to dress up and they want to dress up and have sex as a part of their ritual magic, and all of that fun stuff. And then eventually we get this fucking guy. Edward Crowley, who renames himself at some point in his life Aleister Crowley. He's a rich kid.
Yes,
and he has a
serious triangle hats.
Yeah, he has this real serious bone to pick with Christianity. It grates against him. He never he never liked it as a he didn't like it as a kid, was constantly grading against it in school. Would later, find out that he was a bisexual, which is another thing that was actually illegal at the time in England.
Very much so.
And so the occult was very, very interesting to him, and he very enthusiastically became part of the Golden Dawn. He was also, and he really got into tossing the Christianity right the fuck out of the occult. He did not want, he did not want anything to do with that stuff.
He was kind of almost a true believer too, wasn't he? He just went the opposite direction. He's like, well, I identify with the devil, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
wasn't it? A little bit.
He was a huge troll also. Like, he really
the first and biggest.
Oh yeah, he really loved to annoy and bother people. And so he was very much not only into tossing Christianity out, but saying, I am a deplorable, evil, degenerate. I worship the devil, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He was well known for very bad behavior in the circles of society in London.
Well, and I don't want to. I'm not sure if I don't want to get ahead of you or anything, but he also had a very specific nickname that would really offend a lot of Christians and things like that and everything. The Great Beast 666 is something that I think he I don't know if he just called himself that, or if I think the newspapers called him that, right? The Great Beast.
I think he would occasionally sign his name that way. He was the self-proclaimed wickedest man alive.
He's like,
he had
signing like baseball cards.
People did lots of drugs. I mean, he was in it to have a good time and get weird. And, lots of monocles were popping off.
Right. At this time. And I mean, he had a familiar who, the story of them is fascinating. I don't know if you're going to touch on any of this, but go look up the story of him and Victor Neudberg. Because that's some interest. That poor man was taken on a ride by this man and stuff.
Yeah.
That was
we're kind of getting into some scammy stuff with him too. There's often this element of a scam or a pyramid scheme going on in the occult. And I think Crowley is no exception. He just blew through his money that he had inherited. And by the end of his life, he kind of was destitute because he had a real good time, and he ended up using his position of authority in the occult world to just try and get people to send him money. But he had a good time. He traveled the world. He went to India and went mountaineering and did all this stuff. He and Mathers were pretty tight for the most part. The rest of the Order of the Golden Dawn really didn't like him. He was giving them a bad name, probably, some of them thought.
Was it because of his poetry? He wrote terrible poetry.
Yeah, well, and I mean, people did know him for his writing as well. But the other members of the Golden Dawn, I guess, didn't want him to move up through the order. MacGregor Mathers moved him up anyway. It kind of caused this huge schism that ended up essentially with him, I believe, getting kicked out, falling out with Mathers. He ends up going to Egypt on his honeymoon and says that he comes into contact with the ancient Egyptian god Thoth. He writes this book called the Book of the Law that has been transmitted to him by Thoth. And he starts his own branch of the occult, and kind of takes it, joins other societies, takes it from there, keeps doing his thing. And that he was a sensational figure is one of the main reasons that we're still talking about him, and why he still had an influence. And he had an influence on the occult well into the 20th century. So one of the societies that Crowley became a part of was the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, and he might have been the head of the British chapter. They had chapters, you know, in the United States, one of which I believe was in the Los Angeles area, where this guy on the left, Robert Parsons, he was a rocket scientist at JPL in Pasadena. He was developing the Navajo rocket. He was developing this new science that was going to transform the military and eventually take man into space and all this stuff. And he was way into the occult. He was involved in the OTO. He threw reportedly a lot of eyes wide shut style parties at his house. He had this kind of libertine lifestyle. He was married, and he and his wife lived with her younger daughter, Sarah, pictured here, who is 17 years old. And Parsons had a sexual relationship with her in addition to his wife. And she was apparently okay with that. And one day,
emphasis on the eyes wide shut, right?
This guy comes to visit him. This guy on the right, he's a science fiction author and he's a World War II veteran. And he's come to meet Parsons because he's seen the rocket. He's fascinated by it. And as a science fiction author and a guy who was in the military, he wants to talk about it. This is a science fiction author, L. Ron Hubbard. And he and Parsons become friends. And Hubbard is, you know, is very interested in the rocket. He has all these war stories. I kind of wonder if many of his war stories were tall tales. He was given I believe a dishonorable discharge from the Navy for erratic behavior. I believe he was on a patrol boat or some other kind of boat, and he ordered it to fire on a magnetic rock formation that was at the bottom of the ocean, and was reprimanded for that, was deemed to be mentally unstable. And it kind of caused him to have this beef with psychotherapy that he would bear for the rest of his life. But you know, he liked,
and it wouldn't manifest. Stories. It wouldn't manifest in terrible ways that would hurt a lot of people, though.
Surely it wouldn't.
No.
And so he and Parsons become friends. He likes to tell war stories. He's interested in the occult, and he's also interested in Sarah, who again is 17. Hubbard is married, but he starts a relationship with Sarah, and Parsons.
He was
really
kind of skipping out on his family at this point. Like he had just like, I'm gonna go make money somewhere else, and then went to the Parsons sex parties.
But yeah, Parsons is a little annoyed with this, but also Parsons is got this other thing going. He's really obsessed with this thing called the Babylon or Babylon working. I'm not sure exactly how you say it, but essentially Parsons
Babylon,
is trying to do ritual magic to sort of summon this elemental being who's like a reincarnation of a Babylonian goddess, who will be a beautiful woman with red hair, and have sex with her so that they can give birth to the moon child or the Antichrist or something.
Right.
Something fantastical like that. And anyway, it's like he doesn't really interfere with Ron and Sarah because, you know, Ron seems helpful and he's trying to get this this working done. And one day a redheaded woman who just happens to know Ron shows up at his house, and he's like, I did it. I summoned her. And so he throws himself into he throws himself into his esoteric shit even more. He sells his stock in JPL, I believe, and gets $20,000, which he gives to Hubbard to invest. What Hubbard does,
bad move, giving Hubbard your money.
$20,000. Meanwhile, so Parsons is in correspondence with Crowley. He sends Crowley money sometimes because Crowley's pretty old at this point in his life, and he's in financial hardships. And apparently, Crowley does not like the sound of this Hubbard guy.
Right,
but it kind of says like,
he sounds like he's trying to be worse than me. Yeah.
So Hubbard takes the $20,000, buys a boat, and takes Sarah with him, and just fucking leaves.
Not like a scam artist at all.
And like, I believe Hubbard crashes the boat. I believe it doesn't go entirely well for him either, but it's kind of this crushing thing to Parsons. The woman, this actress that he's met, does get pregnant, but decides not to keep the baby and just sort of takes off. Parsons has gotten divorced at some point in this whole process, because who would put up with this? He eventually does get remarried, but it seems like he's just kind of crushed, and several years later, either accidentally or deliberately blows himself up in an accident in his garage. He
was working with rocket fuel.
He was working with rocket fuel. Hubbard divorces his first wife and marries Sarah, and the two of them go on to write a book called Dianetics. And you
might have heard of it.
Yeah, it's pretty well known at this point. It's a whole other thing that, again, is interestingly occult adjacent.
Yes.
And then there's this fucking guy, Anton LaVey.
Watch out.
Another serious, basically a scam artist. LaVey in 1966 founds the Church of Satan. And as you can see, he's like in a Halloween costume doing what I guess he thinks a satanic ritual looks like. He did study the occult. Yeah. He probably did know a certain degree what he was talking about, but it seems like something he did as a joke. And some people think he even based this high priest character on a performance by Don Rickles of an evil sorcerer on an episode of Wild Wild West. LaVey is really good. He's really a showman. He's a performer. He's doing this Church of Satan thing just to like upset people and get attention and sell books. It's all of Crowley's worst impulses.
He likes attention.
What's that?
I see. He likes attention.
Yeah. How could you tell? Yeah, and like I can't say I know a whole lot about LaVey, because most biographers, when they're trying to write about him and talk to anyone about the things that he claims to have done in his life, none of it is true. But like, this is one, like, the occult eventually even starts to get divorced from like even magic, and just can kind of turn into a sort of a confident scam with robes.
Right.
And
we get to wear horns. Yeah.
But and there are still people who take it quite seriously, who don't like what LaVey is doing, because it's just like, this fucking guy. It's just like, when you see the Church of Satan now, it mostly seems like it's made of atheists who just really like pranking the Christians. Like, they just can't get enough of making the Christians upset.
It's just that's the thing, and that's what I've told people before who've been upset. I'm like, they're just that you're doing what they want you to do. Like, you realize you can't just let them do their thing.
It's not a real religion. They're just making fun of yours by having their own.
they're just trying to have they're trying to make fun of you, and you are playing into their hand. So it's you don't try. I'm not gonna try to explain that to too many other people.
Yeah, exactly. And the occult, there's still people who really like ritual magic and robes and all that shit. But there are traditions that evolved out of the Golden Dawn that did not go that way. There's Austin Osman Spare here. He was briefly in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but he wasn't into all that stuff. He ended up being a soldier in the First World War. He was kind of a brilliant artist. but he looked at like all of the robes and the rituals and people, you know, jockeying for position in this club, and he's just like, man, this is not it. Spare started getting into the idea, once again, getting even more divorced from Christianity and even more divorced from the mysticism of the religions themselves, where the key thing to him is stuff like the unconscious versus the subconscious. The subconscious mind, when you want to change something about yourself, make something happen for yourself, that's the powerful place. The conscious mind, where you're doing all of this squabbling and ritual and repetition and stuff, that's not actually getting you anywhere.
Right.
And so like all of these sigils that are in these books, what good is that? What does that mean to me? I don't actually believe any of this stuff. So he starts, you know, developing stuff that's very personal to him. He develops he calls it the alphabet of desire. Desire, he says, that's what we're after with magic, to get what we desire. The strongest place to find our desires is in the subconscious. That's where we need to be working. It's not all of these invocations to the angels and shit. And his ideas, you know, really come around in a big way, in my understanding, in the 1980s, when guys start developing something that sometimes gets called chaos magic. Their whole thing is basically just fuck the rituals. We're looking for results here. Results. Experiment, try stuff out, see what works. If it doesn't, get rid of it. If there's something there, you know, work with it. And so there's guys like Frater UD. I think his real name is Ralph. He's a German guy. Ralph. Crap. I can't remember. He's a sort of a scholar of the occult. And you know, this is a book of his that, if this is the, for me, this is the first Danzig album of magic books. If you're interested in any of this shit and you want to read a book that's about doing magic, this is the one. And again, it's like the wording here is very different than it is in the older stuff. It's create and use powerful symbols of will. There's also Peter Carroll, who he and Ralph are friends, but have some sort of falling out bullshit. Even when stuff breaks away from the Golden Dawn, these guys, they're like guys in a rock and roll band. They have a hard time getting along with each other for some reason.
Right.
And it's like, you know, Carroll also in his books Liber Null and Psychonaut has this way of get into your inner self and your unconscious, get away from the things that you think about yourself, what you think your identity is. Your true desire lies within. Go find it, go fucking get it. And this like pursuit of will thing is a very kind of pure evolution of something that Crowley writes in the Book of the Law. Very famously, if you know one Aleister Crowley quote, you know this one: "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of law." And of course, he has to be more of a showman about it, and get into how forbidden it is. You ought to burn it after the first time you read it.
This is like the original "This message will self-destruct," essentially.
It really is. It really is.
These are
but
most
like also this whole "do what thou wilt" thing. You know, it also comes around. It's very much it's very much the attitude of the boomers in the 60s.
Mad Magazine.
No, do your own thing, man.
Oh,
and
no.
Like, yeah, in the 60s, you know, like the Beatles are going to India and meeting these mystical figures, and you know, and this guy Richard Albert becomes Ram Dass when he meets his guru over there, and he was buddies with Tim Leary, the tune in, turn on, drop out guy. And so a lot of these ideas from the occult and in traditions that are parallel to the occult, like Theosophy, like New Thought, start to come around. So, instead of your magical sigils and your grimoires, you got shit like this. Fucking line up your chakras, bitches.
Get those chakras lined up.
It's a very similar thing. Like, get in tune with the mystical hidden forces behind things. Except now, instead of calling it God, we're calling it the universe. And now, instead of magic, we're calling it manifesting. Like, we still have it's just like, this is the same Peter? Scam as the grimoires from the 1500s. It's like, get the money and shit that you want without doing as much work as you think you're going to have to get
magical thinking.
Find a way to fucking manifest it. Get what you deserve from the universe. As a side note, like, a lot of this stuff too comes from a thing that's parallel to the occult that is sometime that I believe was called like New Thought. And is very much similar to chaos magic, your consciousness is part of the world, create your own destiny, but also like, you're in touch with God. You can heal yourself of diseases. You don't need to go to the doctor is also an element of this line of thinking. People these days are do sort of seem surprised that people who are on, like, people think of, the yoga folks as being like, the yoga hippie crunchy granola folks as being lefties, largely because of the legacy of the 60s. But it's also like, no, that same line of thinking is Christian Science. That same line of thinking, it really does line up with anti-vax.
It really has been pervasive, especially the last several years. Yeah.
And the anti-vax thing like, it falls right into this law of attraction, the secret, the universe stuff also.
Apparently magic doesn't believe in science.
Yeah, it's sorry. It's
derail it.
It's Danzig's world. We're just living in it. That's the thing. The reason that I think about Glenn Danzig every single day is an interview that I read with him in a music magazine. And the interviewer asked him, do you have a nemesis? And Danzig said, candy. And the simplicity and honesty of that answer haunts me. It's beautiful.
This has all been building to that, and I love it. Oh my god.
So yeah, Danzig's spooky bookshelf. How did those books get there? The occult, etc., etc. And here,
Scotty, you're just showing up, man. We've went for a ride, my man. Well, I'm going to second Michael here. This has been incredibly educational and stuff. And me and you have talked a little bit about this stuff before, but you have a deeper knowledge. Obviously, you've done a little more study.
I mean,
on the actual history of things.
Okay, well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, some of this stuff really is smart guy shit, and I am more of a Danzig than I am a serious scholar of the occult. I'm more of an idiot who likes to lift weights and have a spooky bookshelf that he can sort of giggle about when he shows someone like, oh, I've got.
That's going to be the next episode to have you on. Is like you just like sitting by your bookshelf going,
magic of the Aurum Solus, or whatever, don't you love how happy he is in that video of him with his bookshelf? It's like you hardly ever see Danzig smiling when he's talking to someone, and he's just giddy with his books. It's so great.
And it's Danzig adorable how he's like, I'm getting away with something with these books. It's like the feel and stuff. Yeah, totally.
Danzig these days, Danzig actually did manage to reunite with Jerry and Doyle and play some Misfits shows back in 2016, and they still we'll do a show every once in a while.
Right.
You know, they like manage to either get old enough or want the money enough to just say we can let bygones be bygones, and get the band back together. But now mostly he's making schlocky horror movies. That's what he loves. That's what he's come back to.
Right.
He also made comic books. His comic book label was called Verotic. It was bad. It was just blood and tits, and his movies are just blood and tits. But like,
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get your thing back
even
up
if
here.
It's bad. If it makes money, you get to make more movies. And Danzig is probably going to keep making bad movies that make money and get to keep making them.
Right.
Until he finally decides that he's just done. I mean, Glenn is 66 years old now. And he's transitioning from being a rock star to being a filmmaker, as his second act, at 66. That is just pretty impressive.
It's wild to think that he's that old, because it doesn't, like, it shouldn't be like guys like him should never age past like 39, I feel like.
Yeah, that's about how old he is in that video, Mother.
Right.
He's almost 40. Like, when he got real famous on MTV, he was almost 40 years old. He was younger than most of those other guys. And so, yeah, he's always been kind of this cranky figure, like, around the youths, and it can be very amusing at times.
Yeah, it's completely amusing. My gosh,
he's great. I'm sure in person he can be a real asshole. I've heard from people who've met him that he can. I still love him.
I imagine, though, like you said, like the brick thing, it's probably the funny asshole that he's not trying to be.
No,
but I feel like I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like, I feel like I would probably still laugh. I mean, probably not to his face or anything, but like later on, I'd be like, "Can you believe
Danzig
this fucking
guy?
Can you believe what he just did?" Yeah, totally. Well, real quick before we let anyone in here, thank you for putting together one of the that was a fantastic presentation.
Well, it's your season finale, so I wanted to do something special for you, Jerry.
I appreciate it, Peter. Seriously, that's a really sweet thing for you to do. And I'm sorry I lost the screen there. I hope we were done.
No, we're done.
So
yeah, we're good.
Okay. There were some absolute I learned things tonight, guys. So again, thank you so much, Peter. And I have someone waiting in the wings here to come in and talk. But before we do that, I got to play the live chat call-in theme song. So let's do that right now. Hey, we have with us Michael McCoy.
Yep.
Mr. Local First Order. How you doing, buddy?
I am a man of multiple sources. I'm doing good. This has been fascinating to listen to. As someone who grew up in a very Christian household, much like yourself, Jerry, and you always hear all these fear-mongering things about all the occult stuff, and then Peter just laying it out as, yeah, most of it's a scam. It was just, it was amazing. It's crazy how it gets sort of just portrayed as really not.
I don't even my favorite part of you called it a saga. What a saga this becomes. My favorite saga is the original trilogy, I guess, of this story would be Aleister Crowley to Parsons and Hubbard. That's my favorite section because it's full of so much intrigue and so much just absolute bonkers batshit stuff to me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the man who literally creates Scientology is just coming in and he starts fucking up people's lives before he even starts Scientology is and I don't want to get the Scientologists on us or anything, but you know,
they're already here, Jerry.
They're here. I know we had Brian in the chat earlier talking about how what was it? He works by the house where Hubbard wrote Dianetics.
Oh, that's amazing. That is just,
house number is 666 and all that. It's absolutely off the wall, man. Off the wall. Well, Michael, do you have anything you wanted to ask Peter? Did you have anything you wanted to discuss, or anything to add to the honestly college level course that we just took on the occult?
Nothing to really ask or add. Just wanted to say that was fascinating to listen to, just because, like I said, I've heard a very different version of all that growing up, and now just being able to really understand and really appreciate the art of it was very educational.
Yeah, like, I mean, because it's, you know, the satanic panic, you know, was big when I was a kid too. Like, heavy metal's about worshiping the devil, because there's
D&D
like
teaches you to summon demons
with his scary books, and they're going to corrupt you, or like Dungeons and Dragons is going to turn you into
Harry Potter
a
of all things.
Oh yeah,
but and like
Alex Jones was real worried about that in 2003. Just so you know.
Yeah. And all of that was formed on the basis of like the scammiest version of the occult, like not even the one that was actually like trying to understand something about the world or whatever. Like, no, just the scammy part that was about summoning demons and finding treasure. That's what all the satanic panic shit is based on.
It's
the
so
demons. They just know so much about their buried treasure.
It's so nerdy. It's about guys. It's the nerdy guys sitting in the basements going, how do we get a girl to sleep with me? Like, like, what do you, I got to get money and I got to get women. How do you do that?
How do I do that without working too hard?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm really weak. Stuff like I think I need to go to the underworld for this. I think I need to try to summon a spell like a class 4 mage. You know?
I'm good at reading. Let's see what I can do with that.
Let's see if I can coast by on just that.
Yeah.
I tell you, I hope that there are a lot of people who are as happy with their bookshelves though as Danzig is, because that was just that. Honestly, that was so delightful. It's just like for like as again you said, as much of an asshole as that guy can be, it was a little wholesome to see him.
He's
Just like,
I'm being a little shit.
Here's my books I'm not supposed to have. Yeah, it was absolutely perfect. Honestly, I'm saying it right now, Scotty. We need more Danzig clips on Bombadcast. Frankly,
add those to your repertoire.
We need to add some of that stuff. Like some of those, man. The Facebook hacking was hysterical. He doesn't eat hot dogs. All this, it's so wild. It's just I don't know, man. That was a journey. I didn't know we were going to go on that journey. I didn't know we were going to start there. But what a great starting point and everything to just like jump off of that ledge into, like Michael was saying, like all this stuff that like your parents are like, whoa, you got to be careful.
Don't want to mess with that Harry Potter stuff.
It'll suck you to the 10th level of hell and stuff, you know. It's just, and it's again, it is just the self-help books of like the self-help books of today. It's the same thing as the Grimoires. It's the same thing as all of that. It's just, it's manifesting something out of positive thinking or, you know, magical thinking, whatever you want to call it and stuff. So it's so fascinating, man. Thank you. But anyway, listen, Michael, thank you for showing up, my man. Thank you for coming in here, calling in. I think we'll probably have to close it down here because I've got to go and ponder upon some of these things that we've been given tonight and everything, because honestly, there's so much to chew on from all of this. So Michael, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kick you out, and then I'm going to say goodbye with Peter here. So thanks for stopping by, buddy. Love ya. We'll talk to you later. Have fun talking to your multiple sources.
Good to meet you, Michael.
Dude, seriously, I don't think we could have done the season finale any better than we did it tonight. So I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Thanks for coming on as always. Thanks for giving us some of your time.
I just remembered.
What's up?
A while back on Twitter when I was talking about Danzig, because I do occasionally, because again, I think about Danzig every day. I had a brief exchange with someone who lived on Danzig Street because I posted something about the bricks, and she said, "Holy shit, like that's Danzig." She was like, "I remember that house. I put a note on his gate asking if I could have the bricks and that I would haul them away myself for a project in my yard." And he never called me.
They're my bricks, bitch. Look. Oh man, that is just fantastic. Well, Peter, would you like to tell the good people where they can find you talking about Danzig throwing bricks or whatever you may be talking about that day?
Yeah, I'm if you want to holler at me, I'm on Twitter at Townley Peter.
There you go. And again, you can follow me at the Canon Junkie. Listen, guys, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for sticking with me during this entire quote unquote first season of Hyperfocus. We're not going to be gone for too long. I'm not going to stay gone forever. Just, I'm going to take a little time off during the holidays, kind of recuperate and recharge. But again, thank you, Peter, for coming on. Hope to see you again sometime on either Bombadcast or Hyperfocus again. I don't know. Like I got to figure out the next college course you can teach us for that.
Okay, man.
So, all right. Well, listen, guys, have a great night. I love you. This has been Hyperfocus. And you know what? I still don't know how to end this damn show. Have a good night.
Trailer. Bombadcast has a Rock City Nas to work. Tealer. Stay Bombad.
Shut up.
Stay beamed and candle till I just can't wait.